All right, thank you so much. Here, the program still this morning on ITV on independent television. Yes, we talked about some of the allegations coming through regarding the 2023 general elections that commences February next year. Well, we understand that recently INEC, has begun to release names that will feature for the elections. That is for the political parties, and also too, even for the electorate. We've started seeing names, and we've also started seeing some names that are claimed to be fictitious. And most recently, we saw the allegations that the CUPP made. The CUPP, that's the Coalition of United Political Parties, made in the Southeast, saying that INEC is in the business of inserting names and also deleting some names from the voter register. As a matter of fact, the CUPP claims that some of the names are not even Nigerian names. And some names with their age dates back as 1901, and for them to have years of like 23 years, 30 years and all that. The point here, what we're going to be doing here this morning, we're going to be discussing the issues all over again, even as we know that INEC has made a counter reaction to go against that claim. Well, we have Frank Ehiosu here this morning, a political analyst and also a public affairs analyst too. And we also have Mr. Favor Eromosele, who is a deputant with me on this show, with us on this show this morning on ITV. Mr. Frank, you're welcome to the program this morning on ITV.
Very pleasure.
And also Mr. Favor, you're welcome too on the program. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so Frank Ehiosu, we saw the claims, the allegations coming from the CUPP. What is your immediate response to it?
I think my first response is that it's commendable. If we go by what Patrick Harry affirmed so long a time ago, that the only way we can preserve jewel of freedom is eternal vigilance. That anybody who approaches it should be a suspect in terms of folks who have the mandate to govern or manage the processes that concern it in whatever sphere. But when I listened to the stuff that it bit my imagination on a very peculiar note. I was just wondering on my mind. I said, I hope we are not headed back to the days of Morisiwu in quote. We know it was in the 2007 general elections. At least that was the time where we found peculiar names in our voters' registers. I remember when we did analysis of materials used in the conduct of election in Edo State specifically then, where Mike Tassin was a voter. In fact, some of the foreign names that were there even had their photographs. People who everybody, possibly the world over, knew where they came from and where they reside. But some way, somehow, they were part of our local voters register. Yeah, local registers. Yeah. So when I listened to that stuff, for me it was quite alarming. Very alarming, no doubt. But I commend the effort because it speaks of the concept of eternal vigilance, being watchful. No matter how trustworthy the person that is conducting the process is, you must watch per second to ensure that there's no flip. That's the thing that guarantees security and safety in the entire process. But like a few days later, I think a day after, INEC came forth with a response. Festus Okoye gave his press briefing.
Conference, yeah.
I was taken aback to the extent that Festus Okoye did not deny the assertion made by those guys, by the CUPP. Rather, it was a blanket response that, yeah, it's an exercise that is ongoing.
You mean Festus Okoye accepted that names were inserted or names were deleted?
It's not about names being inserted or deleted. It did not contest the viewpoint put forth by the CUPP folks. They had elaborate viewpoints with details as per the names, pictures, peculiarity in terms of fingerprints, similarity in terms of date of birth of people in their tens and possibly hundreds. If those things were not the way they put them forth, Festus Okoye is an insider. The detail that those guys brought to the public attention, he has it a click away from wherever he is. It's a matter of going to their database and say, okay, what do you have in Olu is the word in mention, and it will pop up. So that he did not counter that viewpoint to say no, there was no such thing, indicates that what those guys said were exact. I don't doubt what those guys said, because of course, you know, we're in a generation where information dissemination is a lot more easier than things used to be way back. So yes, you have people working within the system, and as much as they work in the system, they have different political leanings. They may not be members of political parties per se, just like you have the world over. In the US, for example, you have those who are Republicans by leaning. They may not be, even if they are members or not members of the party, but by leaning they are Republicans. You have those who lean towards the Democrats. So you have such persons across all spheres of parastatals or institutions of government. I imagine that when this stuff was ongoing, somebody within that sphere would just, with your mobile phone, you take a snap and you send it to the quarter that you think that the thing seems to be working against, so that they'll be open about in terms of addressing the issue. What is shocking for me is even the fact that this is supposed to be the era of the usage of automated biometric identification systems.
Yeah, let me pause you there. I'm happy you mentioned that word now, because what Festus Okoye his response is actually on that INEC has the onus to make sure that the names that will be part of that register are not fake names. Even just as members of the public are also concerned that the names that INEC will reveal out eventually are not fake names. So you see that both sides of the coin now have the mandate to ensure that we have a real list.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Festus Okoye's viewpoint on that note didn't quite address that question.
Yeah, but what you talked about the
automated biometric identification system.
Yeah, but Festus Okoye, I went through the response too, and Festus Okoye also said that INEC, that's what INEC is using. So that is what I think, that automated biometric system now. Actually, if a name does not conform to a particular area, if that name seems not to be part from that area, the system deletes that name entirely.
No. There's no machine that has a capacity.
Anyway, let me pause you. Let me pause you so that I'll bring Favor. Now, Favor, what do you make of the whole issue now? Because we are looking at a situation whereby the electorates are concerned. INEC itself is concerned. Even the political parties, as it were, are also concerned. But let's leave the political parties aside now. The electorate are more concerned that we saw what most electorates went through to get themselves registered. And we also saw what INEC also went through to ensure that those electorates got themselves registered. So we're looking at a situation whereby now the names are coming out. Some names are not part of the register. What do you make of it?
Regarding that, when I watched the interview, the only thing that kept ringing in my head was corruption. Because how did those names get on that list in the first place? The access is limited to staffs. Yeah. So which of these staffs gave their access for those names to be listed? Okay. When I was watching the interview, I mean, how do you explain, for instance, Jackie Chan coming from a certain local government and is a female? And they are telling me Jackie Chan is was born 1916 or 1910. I mean, the corruption is appalling. When I watched it, I was surprised. It means the APC are willing to do anything to keep power.
No, we cannot accuse the APC now. APC is not in charge of voters registration. We are talking about INEC now. So APC is not part of it at all. So let's hear you more, Favor.
Yes, the ruling party right now is the APC.
Yeah,
they have the highest number of states.
Yeah,
ruling states, right? Yeah. When I watched the interview, the Imo State governor, current sitting governor, in his local government, Olu local government, for instance, you find out that there are new polling units, where they're now having extensive number
of prospective voters.
Yes, and then with fake names. And then these jobs were not even done. You know, he made mention of having photos that were from a burial extract, and then the job wasn't even neat enough. From the photographs, you can even still see the funeral arrangements on it. I mean, is that not appalling?
Anyway, well, let me, Mr. Frank Eyosu, let me come back to you again. Now, you talked about the biometric identification, automated biometric identification system. which INEC, is deploring to ensure that fake names are not part of the register. Now, don't you think, because INEC is not acting on its own just like that. I mean, there's the Electoral Act that INEC is relying on. INEC by law has the responsibility to ensure that at the end of the day, names that come out are real names. That is on one side.
Yes.
And on the other side, don't you also think that the reactions are far too early? Because we saw Festus Okoye when he said that after the verification exercise, any person, any member of the public can first come forward to make his complaint. So don't you think that the reaction coming from the CUPP right now is too early?
It's not at all. In fact, I almost wanted to say it's late, possibly, but I could say it's pronto. It's right on time. The premium placed on automated biometric and vision system is beyond it. When Festus Okoye's address is in his response rather to the CPP's claim, it didn't quite counter the points highlighted by those guys.
That's by your own opinion.
No, it's in the public domain. When they call something an automated biometric identification system, it doesn't mean that it knows anybody or everybody. It captures data. That is different from BVAS. BVAS is the one that would be used in the course of election.
On the day of the election.
On the day of election.
Yeah.
Bimodal voter aggregation system.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of identity, he emphasized the fact that where there are multiple registration.
Yeah.
Now, give that to the system.
The BVAS.
Not BVAS per se. That's not the result of BVAS.
Okay.
The automated biometric identification system has the capacity to take note of multiple thumbprints possibly and eradicate them from the system. But it doesn't have the capacity to address some of the issues that those guys brought up. Because what happened there is beyond the reach of the system. The system does not operate on its own. It's operated by human beings. Now, if one person is able to bring in thousands of names into the
register,
the ABIS, the automatic biometric identification system, I call it ABIS, so-called. Yeah. If someone is able to do that, how will the stuff be able to detect it? Peradventure, the information that is put in, that system does not detect such detail. How would the system know that I stay in Opalawani, or I stay in Giwamu, or I stay in Iyama Road? That's not its business. The main issue, which I think that was not addressed by Festus Okoye, is the corruption like he mentioned just now. How come a system that is supposed to be used dutifully, where people are supposed to come and they put in their details and it captures it duly, all of a sudden, strangers from nowhere have their details uploaded in it? The guy mentioned something. And if you check data, it's quite evident. The number of registered voters in that ward, where the government is from, unfortunately, as of 2019, were a little more than about 6,000-7,000 or thereabout. What kind of magic could happen that in less than 4 years, one ward registered voters is now about more than half of what you used to have in the entire local government? Because by listening to...
but don't you also think that may be due to... I mean, we saw that in Edo State too. We saw the way people trooped out to register unlike before. No, it's something that all of us saw. I mean, the kind of revolution that we have in registration, we never had it before.
No, the kind of... What we saw, what those guys highlighted, even INEC did not see it in elsewhere in Nigeria. That percentage increase is over... You're talking about 1,000% increase in terms of turnout. Where did they get that? The whole of the country. What was the total number that INEC got in terms of new registrants? About 12 million or thereabout. Where they said, okay, so far in the course of cleaning it up, about 1.1 million is already pushed out of the system. Now, they are not through the exercise, because when they are through, that's when they said they will now merge. If you observe his viewpoint, he anchored his argument on the fact that the CUPP, the argument doesn't hold water in quotes, that they don't have it in those new registrants are not yet part of the voters register. So that was the only defense he put forth.
Because they are not verified yet.
They are not verified, they are going through the clerk's side. But that is jumping the gun. The first point is, how did it happen? Okay. That now, something that has access code. Now we knew that in the course of registration, this is Nigeria. Unfortunately, a number of the ease of making getting people registered, sometimes they take the machines to some places for ease of access, possibly to certain apartments or government houses or non-government houses, as the case may be. So on such occasions, who were the persons that manned them, that made it possible for such things to be uploaded? Okay. That is what I need to be addressing.
All right, so just like what we said, that we really we made a call to Timidi Wuriowei, that's the head of voter education department in Edo State, and also the INEC's publicity secretary to be part of us on this show via Zoom. But we are not getting response from him yet, so when we do have response, we'll be able to make sure that he's part of this show this morning. So we are relying on the reaction that Festus Okoye, the head of voter education of INEC, gave to the CUPP's claim. That's what we are relying on now. Now, Aaron Musele, let's look at the other claim that the CUPP also made, that there is a kind of a secret lawsuit now, to ensure that the beavers will not be used during the election. We all know that the beavers is one very important part of our election, for quite some time now. How do you react to this claim? Because it's also a concern to voters too.
Yes, on the issue of the beavers, the question is Nigeria well equipped to use beavers for elections effectively? Because we had the instance where in Anambra, some officials had to jump on a bike and go to the nearest village just to get network, to download the latest software, to be able to conduct elections effectively. So the big question here is Nigeria ready to use beavers for election? But we don't know what the motive is for that motion to have been filed, and why was it filed secretly?
So if you're saying this now, does it now mean that even if INEC filed it at all, INEC may be on the right track?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they might be on the right track.
Let me hear you more speak on
but
that.
We don't know the whole motive behind filing that. It could be that they are not ready. I mean, beavers requires a certain level of broadband penetration.
Technology, so
yes, and I don't think Nigeria has effectively penetrated that. We've not gotten that level of technological advancement yet.
Yeah.
So I think what they are trying to do is buy more time and then see how they can effectively push it in when it is time. Because we don't want to have situations where during elections, some places we're able to vote in some places, and then in some places we're having a lot of issues
due to network.
Yes, and that will lead to further propel corruption in those areas.
Beautiful submission. Yes. And now, Frank here. So I also want you to react to this one too, because just like what he said, Nigeria as a nation, we really don't have that technology yet for us to effectively run a beavers on an election. So if that is the case now, do we see a free and fair election next year?
First of all, we have gone far beyond that. We have that technology. Unfortunately, I know you made reference to the Anambra election. INEC came out to explain, even people that participate in the election, civil society bodies are monitored and all whatnot, had a clear viewpoint on what happened exactly. It wasn't about the non-functionality of the systems or network as much as the fact that those who were managing the devices, most of them were ill-equipped in terms of how to use the beavers.
No, are we trying to deny on this program now that beavers, you've seen elections in this country?
Of course.
Now, elections that we had beavers, did you have issues with the beavers?
No. The first time beavers was used, the Anambra case, funny enough, as at the case of Anambra, beavers was not yet in use. What they used there was Zipad and the other stuff. Name just keep in mind. They were two. But it is the two that is combined in one in terms of function presently that they call the beavers. And the issue in Anambra, I see affirm. If you go through details, as it's on the record, it wasn't because of network per se, as much as the fact that those who were to use them, most of them were adult staffs who came in to replace those that were trained for it.
Yeah, but
so there are such challenges.
But what we're saying
on the issue of beavers,
the
institutions that have the capacity to give such approval, they've gone past it so long a time ago. The telecom network, relevant institutions like the NCC, and INEC itself, we've gone past that. That's not a contention. Even on the issue of network, it has been addressed that there is hardly any part of this country where you don't have minimum of 2G. And even when you are not able to send it at a point, just like on your phone, if you send a text message, if you are in a point where there's no network, it doesn't invalidate the fact that the message has been sent. Once you get to a point where there's network, it will deliver.
Yeah, but we're looking at an election, just like what he was trying to explain. We are looking at an election that is time bound.
I'm telling you that we have gone past that.
An election that starts 8 o'clock in the morning, at most by 2 o'clock, counting would have started.
No, please. We must keep the public informed duly. These discussions have been eroded by time. Hold on. Yeah. As at last year, INEC gave. We are not the one controlling the election. Those who control the election say they have the capacity to so do. Not just them. Even those that run the technology by which network is provided, they've come together and they did the analysis, and they know that they have the capacity to so do. This stuff we are talking about is already being used in so many countries, smaller countries in West Africa and other places. As far back as 7 or more years back, Angola, Somalia, countries that you could even say have no consequence. So the technology of beavers is even belated in Nigeria.
So you're saying that we have the capacity to effectively deploy beavers?
Okay, the two places where they have been used, what was their claim? Ekiti and Osun State. Even the international observers, everybody was celebrating the fact that Nigeria has made a bit of a headway in terms of making election more credible. So the issue of beavers is a rested matter. It doesn't have any restraint as per network impacting it. I even feel that we are behind time because in the next few years we should be going fully electronic, because right now it's only one component that still makes our election manual. Data capturing and storage is already electronic. There's relevant electoral laws that have enshrined those. Transmission is electronic too.
Yeah, but
that's why I said it's a voting component that is still manual. Yeah. If that component is made electronic, everything becomes electronic. Elections becomes cheaper and better managed in this country.
Okay. Now yeah, let me hear you more.
Okay, no, I'll just.
all right. So, Favor, let me come to Favor now. Now, Favor, we talked about that Festus Okoye actually said that at the end of the day, that voters can come forward and launch their complaint. At the end of the day, that we have the final list being released. Now, just like what we said a while ago, that it appears that CUPP is reacting too early. But the big question we ask, do we really have time? I mean, if at the end of the day, the voter register is displayed and people see that their names are now actually there, whereas they actually went for registration, will INEC have the time to start going through all those complaints and all that before the election?
Just like Mr. Frank had said earlier, their allegations are even a bit late at this point in time.
The
CUPP's allegations. It's a bit late at this point in time, but not too late. At least we're now aware of the situation of things. And then
there are still allegations, though.
Yes, there are still allegations. And then I believe INEC should be in a better position to tackle this as it's still early.
Okay. Yes. All right, so let's look at the election, too, because INEC is not only dealing with the electorate, INEC is also dealing with the political parties. We've started seeing some of the reactions coming through, how INEC is releasing lists for political parties around there. Now, Mr. Frank here, so don't you think will INEC have the time? Because there are going to be reactions and counter reactions coming from the list that we are seeing INEC releasing now here and there as it relates to candidates for the election. Does INEC have the time?
Of course they have the time. Time is available for all and sundry. It is what you make of it that matters. In terms of the issue in view, like the list release and all whatnot, it's not in INEC's capacity to determine what happens or does not happen in such cases. There are relevant laws and possibly injunctions.
Okay, maybe I didn't ask the question, do we have the time? All of us all. Because INEC is not only we the electorate, the political parties and
we have the time. Let's say we are evolving. You know, there's something unfortunate about political practice in this country. You know, sometimes we say we are improving. But the challenge about improvement is how measured it is. If somebody can do something in 3 years, and yet he could equally do the same thing in 2 months, it doesn't make sense to do it in 3 years, because that amount to, in the long run, waste of not just time, vital resources and other stuff that could be done. That's the only challenge I have with our practice in this country. Because what could be done pronto, there's no need expanding it beyond normal when such time could be used for other vital things.
Okay.
But as far as the election process is concerned presently, I think that they are quite on course. On this, still going back to this CPP issue, like I said a while ago, I thought, when I read through the response from the INEC Information Commissioner, the Federal
Festus
Okoye,
yeah.
there wasn't a clear mention of those who, their staffs, who anchored that exercise. Because names don't come from the blues. See, people come by the normal process where you come. People went to register. Most of us are registered voters. You go, you impute your fingerprint, they take your data, everything is captured. It's impossible for data to come from the blues without the person that has the access code to use the device. If the person is not the one using it, he gave the access code to somebody to use it. So there must be some sense of justice. That is what ensures sanity and a sense of continuity in the concept of nationhood.
Yeah.
Okay, see the case we're talking about just now. INEC obviously is not the one. The lawyer whose name appeared on the case file, as it were, has denied the fact that he's not the one, that somebody used his name and his legal stamp, as it were. Now, if the person who is on the sheet, the lawyer said is not the person, who is the one that's filed it? So before clarity is brought to this issue, justice must be seen to take some sense. I mean, take a course. Who is the person that filed it? The thing should be made public. The Nigerian Bar Association, I'm sure, have the capacity to deal with such issues. You know, remember, this country is Nigeria. We have not left to a different place. The IBB days, we know the magic of midnight judgment or midday judgment, as it were. We know the ABM case. We know how, as popular and wonderful as Abila's mandate was, it was an injunction that gave vitality to it's being messed up by the IBB administration.
Okay. Now, as we draw conclusion on this discussion segment this morning, let's begin to suggest for INEC, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a smooth election, so that at the end of the day, the way voters went to register, that is how their names is going to come forth. And of course, that is how their cards are going to be produced. That is how their cards are going to be collected. Because already there are insinuations that a lot of persons may not eventually get their voter's card. I mean, take for example, some places that were made available for registration, whereas those places are not INEC centers, so to say. You know, people are going to have difficulties in reaching out to this card. So what are the suggestions that we'll begin to give to INEC this morning? I'll start with you, Favor.
Suggestions to...
On how to effortlessly collect cards and seamlessly collect cards by registers, by voters.
I believe INEC has the capacity. They have all the data, right? And if, for instance now, Edo State, they have the data of registered voters in Edo State. So if they want to establish new centers or create a frame of time where a certain local government can come and get their voters card, they can do it local government by local government within a frame of time.
Okay.
Like he said, why do what you can do in 3 months in 3 years?
Yeah.
I believe they have the capacity, but for some reasons unknown to the public, would they let everybody who is registered get access to their voters card? For instance, for right now, the allegations made by CUPP shows that some INEC staffs have been compromised.
They've been compromised.
They've been compromised.
Yeah.
Even though they are just allegations in quotes, it shows that some parts of INEC has been compromised.
Yeah.
So that part, first of all, needs to be addressed before voters card, before we can start talking about voters card getting to everybody.
Okay. All right. So Festus Ehiosu, Frank Ehiosu now, on suggestions for INEC on how to get voters to get their cards effortlessly.
I think that it's central to their job schedule. They ought to play that role. My kind of advice to INEC is this. You see, election is very central to electoral democracies, which Nigeria is part of. As at the early 70s, when Freedom House brought out its report on the number of electoral democracies we had in the world, out of about 151 countries as at that time, we had barely 45 electoral democracies. In barely 40 years, by the mid-90s, we were counting about 120 electoral democracies out of less than 180 countries the world over. So the vitality of elections in giving steam to people's confidence in a democracy, which guarantees the continuation of a nationhood, is very, very, very important. Yeah. Now, I say that to say this. Ordinarily, what we operate presently is open secret ballot system. My appeal to INEC is ensure the sanctity of the open secret ballot system. It would be a great shame that in this day and age, option A4 of 1991-93 seemed better than open secret ballot system that is supposed to be
better than
sacred.
Option A4, yeah?
This stuff was introduced, it was popularized by the Australians in 1856. When they opted for it, the British followed suit by their their ballot act of 1872. The Americans followed suit about 12 years later. Most of European powers followed suit because they saw the value. Before that stuff was passed, when people go to cast their vote, because it was public, it was known. Sometimes your landlord, if you vote against the person your landlord is voting for, he will give you quick notice.
Yeah, but frankly, on
I'm
how to
going
get
somewhere.
cards now, yeah.
Now, since it was introduced in those climes, elections have become normal. But in Nigeria, it is abused because law enforcement is suffering from critical deficit. If INEC can ensure the sanctity of open secret ballot system, where people go to vote and nobody knows who they are voting for, because right now, even the cubicle that is in use, it is structured in such a way that somehow, the person that somebody is voting for, somebody is able to see, or there's evidence to. That's why they see the possibility of buying votes. That's my point. Yeah. So if they ensure the sanctity of open secret ballot system, Nigerian electoral democracy will take shape suddenly.
Okay, so on how to get voters' card effortlessly now by voters, that's the question.
I said that earlier.
Yeah.
I don't need to expatiate unduly without being a member of their staff cadre. It's there is something to so do.
Okay.
We're in September presently. Yeah. They have a number of months left.
About
what does it take?
3 months in between.
They have everything within reach presently to make sure it is done that way. They have an online portal. People can register online, but for the fact that they put on a hold on it, I think about 2 months ago, thereabout, or 3 months ago. Yeah. Now, if somebody is registered, you can go online and check. You know whether your card is out or is not out. Okay. And they give people notice where you can get your card. Once it's out, you go and pick it. Okay. All right. They said that right now about 7 million people may not get their cards. Whose fault is it? It's INEC's fault. Because people registered online, but they couldn't go ahead to do it real time.
And people also double register too.
No, those are double registered. The ABIS has addressed it. Okay. That's part of what the First Osokoye response they put forth.
All right, so that's how we end the discussion segment this morning. You can see some of the emotions here. It's just because for us to have a better elections in our country. 2023 presidential election is so important to Nigeria. So we must make sure that we do the needful. All parties involved must make sure that they do the needful so that we can have a free and fair election. I want to say a very big thank you to Frank Ehiosu and also Favor Eromusele for finding time to come on the show this morning. Very big thank you, gentlemen. All right, so the program is still on here this morning on ITV. Please stay tuned.